Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Danjo. This is their part number 104 in a 619 finish. This is an edge pull is what the Danjo 104 is. An edge pull, the term edge pull certainly means lots of different types of hardware, but the way I know it is a pull that's prepped into the edge of the door, used to pull a door out of a pocket, like in a sliding residential pocket door or commercial for that nature. Now they make other edge pulls, and those are generally referred to items mortised or applied to the edge of the door, but they're not always concealed. Some of the edge pulls will stick off the face of the door and have a returned over sort of lip to grab onto and to slide the door. Edge pulls can also be installed in the edge of the door for a swinging door, so they'll certainly be used for both swinging and sliding doors. Okay, the 104 is a very classic design. I certainly would not say that Danjo invented this design, but this edge pull design has been on the market for decades, several decades. I'm quite sure, for sure, mid 20th century easily. I bet I could find a catalog that has them in there, dating from there as well. What that means is that this is a rectangular faceplate with a spring-loaded, concealed trigger that will allow you to wrap your finger there and then pull the door open. Okay? That's how these work. They're very simple in that regard. And that is what the 104 is. Now, the 104 is made in different finishes. It is available in... Bear with me. I'd like to tell you for sure there's 5 of them altogether, I believe. Let's take a look. I'm pulling it up on a screen here. So the 105 is available in 605 for polished brass, 609 for, start over, 605 polished brass, 613 oil rubbed bronze, 619 satin nickel, 620 antique nickel, and 626 satin chrome. I'm surprised they don't have a polished chrome, and yet they have an antique nickel, but those 5 finishes, okay? Those numbers also infer that this faceplate material is also made of brass, so be mindful that this material is made of brass. And probably with the exception of the spring, everything on here is non-ferrous. I would say just the spring would be a steel-based piece of material that's inside of there. Now, these are going to be very commonly seen in what is the term pocket door has 2 different meanings in the world of doors. There's the one that we all are taught, that it's a door that slides into a pocket and you pull it out of the pocket, okay? But then there's a commercial style pocket door where doors, traditional swinging doors, will open, generally a pair, and they will fit flush into a pocket. So depending on how you're using the term, this would be the former. This would be a sliding door that you'll most commonly see in residential applications. There's a link below this video to a document called Template, and that's going to give us the overall dimensional properties of the item, but doesn't tell us really anything about how to mortise it directly. Overall height 3 7/8, that appears to be accurate. Overall width 3/4, I'd go with that as well. They'll have an overall of about 1 9/16 to the edge of the concealed pull. Now, mortising for this in your door, it's simple and straightforward, and while I would think some people say the router is the woodworker's best friend, I would say he's the second best friend, because this puppy right here is the best friend. You're, in absence of having a machining template, and there are manufacturers who don't provide them, what I do is I just measure. I don't use the measurement that's there. I put the caliper on it, and I make sure of what I'm dealing with. And based on my experience, I'll know exactly how much to prep that. So for instance, they say that this is 3/4 inch. Well, the caliper tells me it's 0.770. All right. So if I prep 3/4 inch, it's probably not going to fit in there too well, because it's going to be 20 thousandths of an inch off. Although it might be okay, because this hardware, well, it may not be okay. The fact of the matter is, you might find that a 3/4 inch bit that you've prepped and then squared the corners out will not give you enough width. So that's where the caliper comes in. So what I do when I approach this is I'll put the caliper on everything and make sure of what it is that I'm dealing with prior to just jumping in and start mortising stuff. Well, that may not be the case if you don't have the actual hardware. For instance, the overall height, I'm coming up with 3.871. Very close. Certainly not 20 thousandths off, but is not spot on. Generally, you'll find that having your preparation ever so slightly tight is what the plan is, because some manufacturers of hardware, and I'm trying to detect it on this piece and I don't detect it, that's, although down here it actually is, the edge of this preparation is not 90 degree. It's relieved and beveled in, so that when you apply it to the edge of the door, you get an incredibly tight, fine fit around the hardware to the wood, is what you're going with there. So we've put the caliper on. We know our overall height. You obviously are going to then have to prep for the face plate of this item alone, and the caliper, they say it's 0.95. It's 0.97. You'll then mortise for the thickness of the plate, but then you can certainly imagine, well, I've got to make some sort of a preparation on the edge of the door to account for my trigger and the rest of my assembly back here. So what I might argue is that your preparation will go right from the very top of this brass or bronze material, right under the screw, out to this dimension, that 1 9/16, maybe give it a little extra room, down, and then I'm going to want to come right back and over where the bottom screw is. And speaking of the screw, screws are indeed included. Okay. So my preparation is probably going to look something like that, where if I'm going to draw it, to give you an idea of what that prep's going to look like. It's going to look something like that, obviously. Okay. Oh. So you can see what I'm going for there. You know, something like that is my idea. And, you know, if you're doing one of these, I guess, you know, just make it fit is the answer. But you're going to need to standardize if you're doing a whole mess of them. That would be my suggestion on how to prep that. I would do this with a template. I would do it with a router. I would first do my deep box body. I would do all of this, just the width of the material, and I might be tempted to take 10 thousandths off the width on either side so that it gave me a shoulder for this to sit on, meaning you've got a little bit of distance between the bronze piece and the faceplate. I might be tempted to make that a little bit smaller so that I gave myself a shoulder for the faceplate to sit on. I would do my body prep first, my deep prep, the length, okay, and the depth and the width, and then I would remove that. I'd put my second template on that will only give me my faceplate. And that preparation should make quick and easy work of all of this. I would generally have a plunge router, a separate router that's just plunge with a 1/2-inch 2-flute bit. I would have a template that I would set up for the body prep, and then I would have another template set up for the faceplate prep as well with my, you know, fixed 1/2-inch 2-flute router that I would use for like doing hinges. And I would just set my depth, and that's really where your caliper comes in. So caliper is crucial. That's how I'd go about machining this. Very much demand that you pre-drill those holes for those screws. They appear to be a number 8. Yeah, they may be a number 6. Anyway, the pre-drill size I understand to be about 20% of the root, 20% less than the root diameter of the screw, so that you know, I was taught that the drill should be the size of the body less the threads. I've learned after that it's about 20%, or maybe it's 12%. It's some relatively small percentage. Pre-drill those holes, get a good fitting screwdriver, and tighten the piece of hardware in. This is exposed. You don't want to muck up the screws. You don't want to make your preparation any larger than standard. If you're doing a new installation, obviously take an audit of all of the other hardware that's in the area to make sure that you're mortising this at a good, proper height, so that it matches everything. And obviously, if you're looking at an edge pole from Donjo, obviously flush poles or face poles would be something that you'd be looking at and for as well. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Danjo products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. And that full product catalog broken down into subsections, which make it, in fact, a little bit easier to navigate than an unwieldy 200-page document. Any questions on the Danjo 104 in a 619 satin nickel finish or any other Danjo product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.